Last week we saw the return of the Rani. We wondered what on earth could she possibly want with the Doctor, why she had returned, and what was going to happen because the Rani in classic Who never really had much interest in the Doctor himself. So what has changed all of a sudden? Well, today we found out. At least that's what I thought we would find out. But before I get to that, hello and welcome back to Chat About It, Don't Shout About It with me, Rachel, the Queen of the Woke, as crowned by one of my haters, not by myself. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe to the channel, switch on the notification bells so that you know I am releasing another video. Thank you to everyone who has joined me already. I couldn't run this channel without you. Before I begin with this review, please do remember that it is okay if you like the Doctor, and it's okay if you like this series. It's fine, you are allowed to do so. And if other people do not like it, then that is also okay to do so. We are a discussion channel, we can agree to disagree, and I have seen in recent weeks some fans of the series come into the comments section and leave some positive reviews. So hello and welcome, and please everyone do keep it friendly in the chat. I'm going to start by talking about my dad. Now this might sound a bit strange, but this will show you the general consensus, I think, of the older demographic when it comes to Doctor Who, in my opinion. I was out with my dad today, and just before I left him and my mum, Doctor Who was coming on, and I heard my mum say to him that he could watch Doctor Who if that's what he wanted to do. He is what I would call a classic fan, a casual viewer of New Who, and he was completely against the casting of Jodie, so he didn't watch it at that time because he didn't approve of that casting. That's fine. He did watch The Star Beast, and that was pretty much it. He hasn't watched any of the recent series, and tonight he just went, yeah, no thanks, and he put on Britain's Got Talent. So my dad's in his 60s. I think that just tells you a lot about how the older generation is feeling about the direction of the show and how it has gone. Now to my review. So my reviews are, I'll give you a brief synopsis, and then I will talk about the good points and the bad points, and the bad points, and well, the points that I would have liked to have been done better, I should say, and all of that whilst I try backing it up where I can. I do not do blow by blow reviews. I just review and flow as best as I can. Wish World was written by Russell T Davies and is the first part of a two-part story for the finale of Doctor Who. We start by seeing the Rani riding through Bavaria in 1865. She is there for one reason and one reason only, and that is to take a baby. This baby has unique powers. This baby is connected to the pantheons. This baby is Desiderium, excuse me if I butchered that, the god of wishes, which I thought was a really cool idea. We are left wondering what earth could the Rani want with this baby. Jump to 2025 and we see the Doctor waking up in bed with Belinda, which doesn't make any sense because we know that the Doctor is no longer inclined that way in a romantic interest. However, nothing about the Doctor and Belinda's relationship seems natural in this story, and the reason why is because something very strange is going on indeed, because they also have a child, and that child's name is Poppy. Poppy from Space Babies. On the TV is also a face that we recognise, Conrad from Lucky Day. He is reading a story about Doctor Who. He has a very meta book cover in front of him, and if you look closely and compare it to, you will notice that it is a reference to a Harry Potter book. It is a take on Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone book. Interesting, yes, I know. Thankfully, because the Doctor has no clue that he is the Doctor, we don't get any silly references to Space Babies. They are having a wonderful breakfast with their child. Some doubt is expressed and a cup appears to slide off the table onto the floor. Now, this is a running theme throughout the entire story, and it also is related to the phrase, tables don't do that. The Doctor gets another cup out of the cupboard and then he leaves for work. But he meets someone at the door, and that person is Ruby Sunday. Ruby Sunday is expressing major doubt. She believes that the doctor is the doctor, but she can't quite work out what is going on. He doesn't believe her, and Belinda calls for help because someone is expressing doubt. He goes to work. We get some shots of fake dinosaurs and what looks to be some kind of giant spider, and it is a bone skeletal structure. He arrives at work and we get a bit more of cup smashing going on, and all the faces that are in his workplace are familiar. They are from Unit, but we don't really see them in the story all that much at all. They have very little impact whatsoever. We cut to the Rani and Mrs. Flood, and we see them at work on the experiment that is happening. Mrs. Flood makes a sandwich with Conrad so that it appears that Conrad has been using the baby that Rani has taken at the beginning, which has a laugh like the giggle, that arpeggio bit. I love that, by the way, to make his wish of a world being a better place. And what he has done, and this is at the command of the Rani, he has created a perfect world with the use of this baby, and this perfect world is essentially designed to trap the doctor. Everyone is going about their day and everything seems to be normal, but doubt is really the key factor in this story because people keep having doubt. They keep getting flashes of memory from the real world. The doctor is included in this, and we see him at the end of his workday, sat down having a drink, doubting himself, and this is when we see Rogue appear on the screen. He somehow manages to break through this wish from the chasms of hell or wherever it is that he is to pass on the message that tables don't do that. How he would know that, I really have no idea, but there you go. Oh, and he also tells the doctor that he loves him. This then leads to the doctor resolving the mystery surrounding the cups, which I think RTD would really wanted us to be talking about because he posted about it, but most of us couldn't care less. Belinda notices that he has doubts as well, so she calls the police on him, and she also gets taken away at the same time for the same reason. This is when they end up in the Rani's lair, and this is really where we start to get the information that we need for this story. The Rani shows him around in order to prompt his memory. She shows him the seal of Rassilon, she shows him the clone type classiforms, and she also shows him that she's got the Vindicator, and it has made a voice set laden energy to the power of 5, roughly the equivalent of 1 billion supernovas, creating enough energy to amplify the wishes of a god, which allowed Conrad to create an entire world. She reveals that she has pretty much blocked off May 24th, and that prevented him from returning so that he would go and get these Vindicator readings for her so that she could do what she is doing now, and that's create a perfect world that doesn't exist with Conrad. But when doubt starts to set in, that's when it starts to rip through the realities and things like that. And the doctor, his doubt can rip through the reality and the world essentially. And when asked the reason why she was doing what she was doing, this was because she was looking for Omega. She has plans to bring Omega back. We hear the voice of Omega. The doctor remembers everything, but by that point, the Rani has locked him on a balcony, and she uses her sonic screwdriver, which ironically looks like a normal sonic screwdriver, to activate her explosion so that the balcony cracks and he plummets to the ground, and that's where the cliffhanger ends. Oh my goodness. Okay, there are good points about this story and there were bad points about this story, but I am going to say this right now. Off the bat, this story was mid at best. I'd say it's 6 out of 10 maybe. I would say that this story is 100% better than the last 2 weeks, but I also want to start off by addressing an elephant in the room, or at least it's an elephant in the room that I believe to be an elephant in the room, and I don't know if anybody else has picked up on it, especially people who listen to Big Finish. If you watched my review of The Ghost Monument last week, which was the Jodie Whittaker story, you may remember that I said that some of the story bore similarities to a particular era in the Paul McGann Big Finish audio story arc. Well, I'm going to say this. I think that last week I was wrong. That story had nuances of the Paul McGann era, Wish World was riddled with it, and I was sure to check the credits at the end to see if there was a credit to this particular story that I am thinking of, but I really could not see it. Now, it may mean that I just need to go back and check the credits again, but this story bore a very striking resemblance to the natural history of fear, where the Eighth Doctor is in a divergent universe and he is a type of editor, I guess you could say. They are in a very weird and altered reality. They can't really remember who they are, and they're not allowed to ask questions. And I feel like it was with them, it was a lot of the greater plot point details in that particular story, but I'm not here to talk about that. I'm here to talk about Wish World. However, I am just saying that the resemblance is quite uncanny. It's not exactly the same. It's just that it seems that in this one, Conrad is a type of editor with the assistance from the Rani, and he is controlling what's going on in a perfect universe where you are not allowed to express doubt. It's fundamentally a story of oppression. Now, what was nice was that we got back to some Doctor Who. It didn't really feel all that much like Doctor Who, but compared to what we had last week, it was Doctor Who. Okay, the story has a really strong start. I like Archie Panjabi as the Rani. I said that last week that I thought it was a good cast, and I'm still standing by that. In her first scene, she easily commanded it, and between her and Anita, they held up the entire story. Her portrayal is not exactly the same as Kate's, and that's fine. I don't want it to be the same. But I do feel like she has gone and she has pulled elements from Kate's original Rani performance. And I would say that Anita has also done the same. I felt like Anita was much more like the Rani this week. And when you have both of them on the screen, you could tell that they were one of the same being. Now, I don't necessarily think that's the writing that's doing that. I think that's their acting choices and direction that's what's doing that. And whilst they had the similarities, they were fundamentally the same. The only thing I don't particularly like is the fact that Anita's Rani is a little bit subservient to Archie's Rani. Now, I know what some of you may think that I'm trying to say, but I'm not saying that. And it's more to do with the fact that they bi-generated. So what do you do with the other Rani? Essentially, Anita has become the other Rani. So what will they do? The thing is about bi-generation is that it detracts from the person who is taking over. Now, I thought it was originally introduced because there was doubt over the series and the direction that it was going in. Then, there was also doubts perhaps behind the direction that they wanted to go in with the Doctor as well. They knew it was going to be a risk, so they put the bi-generation in as a fail-safe. If one Doctor doesn't work, you can fall back on the other one. However, in this case, I don't feel like they really needed to do it with this character. They could have just done a regular regeneration and had a clean exit for Anita and a clean start for Archie. And I say this because I think Anita really also should have had chance to be credited, much as like Derek Jacobi should have had the chance to be credited as the Master, as the Rani, in at least one story before going into a regeneration. Allow her to command the screen entirely. You can see in her scenes when she's not against Archie that she could command the scene very well. And that's not because Archie upstaged her. She really didn't. I just wanted Anita to have her moment as the Rani, but you've got two Ranis on screen, so you feel like it's a bit of a face-off, I guess you could say. And I really would have liked them to have their individual chances of shining separately rather than doing it together. But there's also a really good chance as well, I think, that we may see Anita's Rani betray Archie's Rani. And also, that's getting really confusing. I have to specify which Rani, which version of the Rani that I'm talking about. So, yes, good, strong commanding in the opening scene from Archie. She, in my opinion, does emulate the Rani very well. Is it too camp? I don't think so. I think it's the right amount of je ne sais quoi, I guess you could say. And Anita has some stonking good line deliveries as well. I really do appreciate also that they took the time to use some archive footage of Kate. That was a nice little touch. The original Rani. The writing for the character, though, is debatable. And the reason why I say it's debatable is because, yes, it is like the Rani doing some kind of experiment, very much on point. At this point in time, we don't really know what it's for, but I'm guessing she wants to take over a planet, possibly. If that's the case, then that's also well within her character. She does do that in Time and the Rani. However, I get this feeling that she wants to take revenge. And this is where I have a downer. Now, they could address it in the next part of the story, the reality war. But I would have felt like they would have needed to address this in this particular story instead, but they don't. At the end of the Time and the Rani, the Doctor stops her evil control over the Lacurtians and she escapes to her TARDIS, but she finds they have been taken over by Tetraps, and so she's captured, I guess you could say, by the Tetraps in her TARDIS. So her revenge, theoretically, should be based on that, I would have thought, because other than that, she has no interest in the Doctor whatsoever. They would have to tie this in somehow, and I have no idea what they would do in order to tie it in. And the fact that she's after Omega, why on earth would the Rani want Omega? Now, this is nothing on Archie and Anita. They are only performing the words that appear on the paper and bringing it to life. That is their job. This is all to do with Russell T Davies. I also said in my post, on my post page here on this channel, that Omega would come back. I didn't think I would get that right. We might as well just throw Russell on as well with it. Why not? Let's just add Russell on to the mix. And here's the thing about bringing back old characters, especially now. A lot of the classic era fans are barely hanging on to Doctor Who anymore, and the main demographic now is pretty much New Who fans who joined from that time period, and anyone, of course, who has joined now. Just randomly, I saw a post with a picture of the Doctor the other day holding the plunger from Joy to the World, one of the best jokes that I think Shooty's done. Well, there was a comment underneath this particular photo, and this person was saying that they had only just joined the fandom and they wondered what alien could possibly have a plunger and why was the Doctor terrified of a plunger. We are getting all these characters that are brought back. In this one, we're getting Omega, we have Rani, and then we've got Susan Foreman. And these new viewers have no connection to it. And in the minds of RTD, these new viewers just don't have the patience to go back and look over the old stuff. I do think that Doctor Who is at the stage where we need to start bringing in much newer stuff and to create mainstays for the New Who generation. Classic Who fans have their mainstays in the form of Omega, Rani, the Master, Daleks, Cybermen, Silurians, Sea Devils. There's a big list. Stop trying to cling on to a fandom that is dwindling out of its interest in the current stuff, and write specifically with a new mindset and create new stuff, and you never know, it might just bring them back. I do not like the fact that Rani just reveals that she is bringing back Omega as well. Omega should have been that cliffhanger. Now, the cliffhanger itself was good. I like it. But if we could have just sped this story up and cut out a lot of the wish world fake reality bit where it's mostly just talking, we could have got to the reveal of Omega so much quicker than what we did. In fact, we've not even had it yet. And I think that's why I saw some comments saying that it was a snooze fest. And the reason why is because there's no action in it. Well, there's not enough action in it. And just a side note, I'll talk about the lack of action in just a moment, but the Rani dancing with the doctor, why does RTD always need a dance scene moment with like a glitter ball? It's not Strictly Come Dancing. Anyway, back to the lack of action. I know, and I will acknowledge that this story is working as a setup for the second part, the reality war. I get it, that's fine. But we had that really good opening where Rani takes the baby, and I love the fact that the baby is a higher power, although I will say it does give good omen vibes as well. But there's a good 25 minutes at least dedicated to this world. That is just a wish. I think we could have broken that down an awful lot sooner. Or if you didn't want to break it down sooner, have much more drastic things happen when doubt occurs. So I like the idea of the cup slipping off the table, but not just having a cup doing that because going through the table because the table is not real. Or perhaps the flashbacks that they have in it as well. Make it have some more impact. Make it a little bit more scary, since this world that they are in, that is appearing to be a perfect world, is actually pretty dangerous. I do, however, like the scene with the disabled community. They have been oppressed, and they say that in this case. I would say that's fair game because you can clearly see it works within the context of the story. Shock horror. Russell T Davies did something that worked within the context of a story. Go figure. They have set up a base camp, and it's a bit like Turn Left, I guess you could say. I do like the scene though. It's nicely acted, nicely directed, wonderfully understated. They do make Ruby the person to be the one speaking to them. I think it would have been better if it had been the Doctor, because at this point they're making it like the Doctor is the most stupid one and very slow on the uptake. And I think that's more to do with the fact that the script is making it so that he has to find out that he is facing the Rani. Ruby doesn't have that much impact on this story other than that one particular scene. Millie is good and as consistent as ever with her performance. One who is not so consistent but I feel has given her best performance to date is Varada Sethu. Playing this type of character I think really suits her. So Belinda's not in this the strong, independent woman that we have seen through the entire series. She's a housewife. And she's almost likeable somewhat. And I really liked the scene where she is begging the Rani to let her and the Doctor go for the sake of their child, Poppy. So I do think she does that really well. So credit where credit is due. It's a big improvement. Now, Poppy is one of the highlights. I'm so pleased that we have not got her now as a baby who can't talk. We've not got Look Who's Talking 3.0. She now clearly has words, and I will say, I think she's very confident. It's very clear that they perhaps maybe introduced the actors to her very early on so that they could bond and have natural interactions with her. It's either that or she's really just not shy whatsoever. But I really thought that she was a highlight. Now, I am a bit concerned, though, that this story comes across as plot holy. I'm trying not to judge this too soon because it may come together in the next part. But they make a point of saying that the Doctor is the last of the Time Lords. However, there is a Time Lady that remains. But first of all, we know that one of them is Susan. If you're a classic watcher, we know that he leaves her on planet Earth over 100 years in the future. You can see where that's going, can't you? And then we also have the Rani. Now, unless I'm being completely dumb, the writing implies that the Rani had died in the Time War. That was what was implied. I don't believe that to have ever happened because of the ending of The Time and the Rani. And we all know, at least the classic fans do, that she really doesn't have any interest in returning to Gallifrey. So there's that there, and there's also the tie-in from the previous story, the Interstellar Song Contest, to this one. We have a big implosion that happens on the TARDIS doors, but there's no tie-in to show us what happens with that. And there's no mention of how they get into the situation that they are in, but I don't want to preempt it and scream a gaping plot hole. I'm just highlighting it just in case it becomes one. It might not, though. Ncuti, though, didn't overly impress me very much in this story, and it's all to do with the beginning of it. I won't say he's bad, just so you know, I don't think he's a bad actor. We've had a really good, strong opening start with the Rani, and then it cuts directly to a scene where he sits up in bed and he yawns, but it's the most superficial yawn that you could possibly do. I don't know if it was an acting choice or if it was directed that way. And I would feel, though, that if you believe that you are in this reality, you wouldn't act like that, you know. It's like I don't want to say what my acting teacher would have called that, but you would, in my opinion, act perfectly natural. It seemed a bit forced. He got better though as the story went on. I also got a lot of parts of this, you know, from the second part of the Silence in the Library. It just gave that vibe as well. But it's just my opinion. I think that's also one of the biggest issues, actually, that I have with this story. It's borrowing a lot from other stories, be it audio plays, be it Good Omens, or be it past Doctor Who. There's just something about it that doesn't feel like it is as original as it could be. And RTD used to be able to do that. I do like the reveal. It is extremely chatty, but it tells us everything that we need to know in order to lead up to the second part. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that part I was fine with. We could have had this a little earlier, admittedly, but I do like everything with the Vindicator, the idea that a Time Lord's doubt could rip open reality in the world and things like that. Love all of that concept and all of that idea that's gone into it. It just should have started earlier because I think we needed that key ending with Omega. But the thing is, it doesn't really open up a lot of questions over the fact that what is going to happen. It just doesn't get you asking those questions. The Doctor, what's going to happen to him, and who is Omega? And I don't know if it is enough to get people interested. Omega, in my opinion, is one of those characters like the Rani that needs to be used sparingly. So, yes, the concepts were there. It just needed to be done earlier, as I've just said. The cliffhanger is good, though, for what we got. I'm not entirely sure if it is within the character of the Rani. I don't think it is, actually, to send the Doctor falling to his death because she really doesn't care about him. But in this case, she does. And they will really have to make the payoff big in order to justify that change to her character that much. And if you're wondering what I mean by changing her character and you don't really know who she is, well, she doesn't have any interest in the Doctor whatsoever. She doesn't care if he is alive or dead. She is just interested in her experiments. She's a scientist, she's a biologist, things like that. That is what she is interested in. And she's always been like, yeah, you can do whatever you like with the Doctor. I don't care. That's her attitude. I didn't like the reappearance of Rogue, other than him being one of the key to keying the Doctor's brain back into the fact that he's the Doctor and he needs to solve this, basically. He didn't really serve much of a purpose. I also want to say that I would say that it is a bit unnatural for him to say, I love you to the Doctor. At this present moment in time, they barely knew each other for 5 minutes. I also don't like romance for the Doctor in Doctor Who. It's my opinion that the Doctor is asexual, and I remain by that opinion. I didn't like it when Rose did it either. So no matter what people say, It's not going to change my mind. Romance between the other characters? Fine, go for it. I'm guessing what's going to happen is that Rogue is going to be the equivalent to Rose in this case. You know how Rose keeps coming back? I think that's what's going to happen here, or at least that is what it felt like. And there's also another thing that this story seems to imply, and it was implied with the last story as well, is that the Doctor doesn't seem to recall his granddaughter. Now, it could just be me, but that is what it feels like, which to me doesn't make any sense because he mentions her in the Devil's Court. But like I say, that could be me. What does appear to be a good thing, though, unless I missed this, is the Doctor does not cry. Yay! And that's because he can't remember anything for most of the story, so I'm sure the waterworks will be in full flow for the next one. Now, I'm definitely have reason to believe that we must be gearing up for a regeneration. There seems to be a lot of throwback going on to the past in this particular story. Once again, we see the Doctor's faces of the past. This is what makes me believe that we are gearing up for a regeneration. Now, I hope they manage to save enough money for a potential regeneration because they look like they have spent a lot of money in this particular case. Those big skeletal structures are amazing. I'm not entirely sure of their relevance, though. They didn't really do anything in the story other than look visually quite good. I suppose their main purpose was to step on people, but not physically step on people, which makes Ruby question why they look so real, but they're not. But other than that, they're not really made a big deal of. I really like it when everything disintegrates around them. That's pretty impressive. It's a bit like everything turning to dust and the Empire of Death and all of that. I like the CGI though that they have done with this story. Now, the place that Rani is in, I don't believe it is her TARDIS. It is implied that her TARDIS is elsewhere in the story, and that's because we see her flying to this particular layer on this hoverboard thing. I don't really know what the name of it is. Her set, though, is impressive. You see it on the screen here, actually. It's all bones and it's red, and they've got the giant seal of Rassilon, which looks absolutely fantastic. And I would say that the clone type classiforms makeup looks really cool. Now, before I do wrap up this particular review, I just want to address the hypocrisy of the sonic screwdriver. Rani has a sonic screwdriver in this, and it's very much clear a sonic screwdriver. You can see it, it's blatantly obvious. So RTD, if you are okay with her having one, why can't Shooty have one? Is it because Rani is an evil character, so therefore you can do that because she is evil? You went through all that palaver of explaining to us why the hero could not have a sonic screwdriver because, setting the movie aside, even though you were the one who brought it back for the TV series, you were adamant this time that it was not going to happen because it looked too much like a weapon. I know it sounds really trivial, but I just wanted to point that out. The hypocrisy behind that, or it could just be me saying, bye bye, Sonic, you should go. It's more likely that. So this story for me was just mid at best. The payoff for this is going to have to be extremely big. I know I said that last week, but I still maintain this stance. You've brought back a character that has zero interest in the Doctor, but you're making it seem like she's out for revenge, but you yet to have explained that. You're also going to be bringing back Omega, who, like the Rani, is not a massive character, and it's purposely done that way. Although, having said that, I will say that Rani doesn't have so much interest in the Doctor, but Omega does. So maybe Omega is going to be the main villain. Anyway, if recently you've got into this habit though, RTD, of bringing back characters that have very minimal overall effect on the entirety of the show. You bring back Sutek, you completely butcher him because you believe it's cultural appropriation, and now you're going to bring back Omega, and I'm a little bit concerned as to how you're going to do that character. Is he going to be animated like Sutek, or are we going to have a live actor for it? I would prefer a live actor. What this story really needed, though, was to be sped up. Unusually, it didn't need more time, and the reason why it doesn't, obviously, there is a part two, but also on top of that, the reveal of what the Rani is doing is not massive enough to warrant an impactful cliffhanger, and I believe also the reason for that. She's that type of character that doesn't have much to build upon, but that doesn't necessarily suit or warrant building upon that character, if you understand what I mean. So it will be interesting to see how you will use that character in order to take down the Doctor and bring back Omega. Other than what I've said, though, I can't really say much more about this particular story until the second part next week. So that's it, really. Let me know what you think. Chat about it, don't shout about it. Please do keep it friendly in the chat. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you tomorrow at 4 p.m. with the ratings video rather than my usual review. Bye bye.